Morning.
Happy Black History Month, right? So we're going to kick it off with a quote from Carter G. Woodson, who's commonly known as the father of Black History Month. The quote goes, "We should emphasize not Negro history, but the Negro in history. What we need is not a history of select races or nations, but the history of the world void of national bias, race, hate, and religion and prejudice." So we stand here strong as Black legislators, calling for the legislature and the governor to join us in improving the lives of Black New Yorkers here in New York State. We understand the metrics, and we don't have to go over statistics because we live it every day. Our communities are suffering, whether it's a lack of educational opportunity, a lack of access to healthcare, a lack of generational wealth, and it's a crisis that we need to address. And so we have solutions, and we want to move them forward. So with that, I'm surrounded by so many articulate colleagues who are going to describe what our agenda is going to be. So I'm first going to kick it off to Senator Parker.
All right.
Good morning. I'm State Senator Kevin Parker. I represent the 21st District in Brooklyn, which is Flatbush, East Flatbush, Midwood, Ditmas Park, Canarsie, Flatlands, Mill Basin, Marine Park, and Bergen Beach. I'm the chairman of the Energy and Telecommunications Committee, as well as the senior assistant majority leader of the New York State Senate. And let me just thank our leader, Mickey Solange, the chair of our committee, for her intrepid leadership and for bringing us together on these important issues. Also, let me just thank Josh, who's our great executive director. Nobody works harder than he does here. And so in this moment, it seems that Black History Month, once again, is poised in the right place and the right time. Because there is no more important time for us as Black members of the state legislature and Latino members and Asian members to be stepping forward and saying these are the things that need to happen in our state government, particularly because of the onslaught that we're seeing on the federal level. And so here we are advancing a agenda that is not just important for our community, but really creates a basis for those who are in need all over our state. But particularly we here as a Black caucus saying that we must in fact prioritize as Black members the Black community. And so in the terms of advancing Black New Yorkers, we're demanding $50 million in funds in the budget in order to help African American organizations, including those that are, in the front lines on the issues around workforce development, around economic empowerment, as well as social services. And so we will be leveraging our votes and our positions to make sure that this is done in this moment, in this time, and more importantly, in this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Assembly Member Zimmerman.
Sorry.
And she's going to be discussing Black wealth, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm New York State Assembly Member Stephanie Zimmerman. I serve as the Deputy Majority Whip in the New York State Assembly and the chair of the Subcommittee on Emerging Workforce. But today I want to talk to you all about housing. We all know, as we stand here today, that New Yorkers, particularly Black and working class families, are facing an unprecedented housing crisis. Home ownership, as you know, is the cornerstone of generational wealth, and it is slipping further and further out of reach as foreign investors and corporate speculators buy up our communities, driving prices sky high and displacing the very people who built this neighborhood. Anybody standing on these steps today can tell you about what's going on in their community. You have to have $2 million in cash to live or buy a piece of property in Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights, the neighborhoods that I represent. So that's why I am fighting for and reintroduced this year the Housing New Yorkers First Act. It's a bill that was introduced last session, but it puts our people before profit by placing a 5-year moratorium on foreign entities purchasing homes in New York unless they plan to live in it as their primary residence. The numbers tell a clear, troubling story. In 2023 alone, foreign investors spent over 1.6 billion on residential properties in New York City, often outbidding local families who simply want a place to call home. Studies show that in neighborhoods like Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights, home prices have skyrocketed by more than 200% in the last decade, largely due to speculative buying. Across New York State, black home ownership rates remain 30 percentage points lower than white home ownership rates, a direct result of decades of redlining, predatory lending, and now unchecked foreign and corporate speculation. This bill is simply about fairness. It's about protecting working families who have lived here for generations. And it is also about ensuring that New York remains a place where people can afford to stay and to thrive. So I urge all of my colleagues to sign on to this legislation and for New Yorkers to demand its passage. If we do not take bold action now, we risk losing the soul of our communities to investors who see our homes not as places to live, but as assets to trade. So we all know and we believe as a value in this caucus that housing is a human right, and New Yorkers, not speculators, must come first.
Thank you so much. Next, we have the amazing Latrice Walker. Yeah.
Almost like a superhero, Hero K. So good morning, everyone, and happy Black History Month. There is a quote that I learned as a kid growing up in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, where our history does not begin where they dropped us off at. It began where they picked us up from. And so we are a legacy of kings and of queens. And we stand in that moment to reclaim everything which was stolen from us and rightfully belong to every human being, no matter what color you are, what your ethnicity is, what your creed, your religion, or your sexual identity. One of the things that we learned from Dr. King is that we may have come on different boats, but we're all in the same ship now. And that being said, as we are watching DEI be eviscerated in Washington, D.C., we are seeing the attacks on our voting rights. We are watching as the attacks and the relitigation of our civil rights happen each and every day right before our eyes. Even so much so, we have watched that our leaders' history being opened up, even though we know that Dr. King was attacked by COINTELPRO, there are things that are no longer going to be classified. And so we are going to watch as America's laundry is pulled down. But we must remain committed to our goals. One of the things that we know is that slavery was abolished except in the case of criminal punishment. So as long as the legacy of criminal justice goes, so does the legacy of Black people in America goes as well. I've introduced a bill, the Second Look Act. It allows for people who were receiving football numbers, 100 years in prison, 99 years in prison, death sentences, people who have died behind bars, never to see their families again, and never to have an opportunity to become a part of a civic society, just waste away. After a person serves 10 years in prison, they have an opportunity to apply for a hearing in order for their sentence to be shortened. And so I encourage my colleagues to support the Second Look Act, to become co-sponsors, and let's ensure that earned time credit, as well as all of our parole justice agenda, gets adhered to this year. Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Next is Imani, the birthday boy here. Yeah.
I am Assemblyman Demond Meeks, representing the 137th Assembly District in Rochester, New York. I stand with these slate of bills that we're introducing. As representatives of the Black community, we have a responsibility to advocate for policies that will benefit the communities in which we serve. One of the things that we're taking a look at is some of the challenges that continue to exist with our carceral criminal justice system. I'm one who have been to our prisons to visit our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated far before the gross incident that took place at Marcy Correctional Facility. With that, we have a slate of bills that we are introducing as a caucus, as a membership, to advocate for needed change in these spaces, The practices of beating and killing individuals in our correctional facilities is unjust and is totally unacceptable. We also know that 85% of those individuals who are incarcerated will be returning to our community someday. So with that, we have a responsibility to look after those individuals as well as those individuals within our community. We're looking to restore families. And doing this type of advocacy, it also helps to restore families and takes the stress levels off of those who are outside advocating for those who they love on the inside. So with that being said, we're here, we're committed to this work, and we're going to continue to persevere to assure human rights for all of us, not just those of us on the outside, but those on the inside as well. Thank you.
We also remember the name, and our hearts are with the Robert Brooks family. We heard today, and it was confirmed, that it was a homicide. But we didn't need a medical report to know that. It was murder. And so we're with his family, and we're still calling for justice for him and reform of the system. With that, we move on to Assemblymember Bernice Bichot to discuss MWBE, as well as Senator Sanders. You want Senator Sanders first? We'll do Senator Sanders first since he's right at the mic, right?
Greetings, Madam Chair, to the caucus members. I am Senator James Sanders Jr. of the talented 10th Senatorial District. And I am reminded of those great American philosophers, Public Enemy, that made an album called Fear of a Black Planet. And that album was speaking of how America has a real problem with these things. And this problem is epitomized by all of those who are talking about you can't say the word Black history. At the federal level, they've said, no, we can not have Black history. You can have it in your heart, but you can't say it out loud. We can't teach it, we can't practice it, but don't worry, you're free. So we stand at a strange place, and it's the laboratories of democracy, the state government, that must step up at a time like this. And I thought I saw Governor Hochul across the way looking at, I think I see her waving. So I'll make my questions, my positions to her. Governor Hochul, we are doing some amazing things with the MWBE program in New York State. Amazing things. However, I am reminded that New York City, with a budget of $129 billion, has done $6 billion in MWBE. And New York State, with a budget of at least $259 billion, has done $3 billion. I'm sure that we are going to surprise the world, Governor, with our next go-round, where we should at least match what New York City has done. In fact, we should do the same, and we should be around 12 billion if my math is off, but I'll accept with yours. You may want to do a little bit more than 12 billion, Governor Hochul. I won't stop you. So I'm very grateful to stand with the best people that money can buy. The best people who are going to fight for these issues and ensure justice rains down in New York State like it should rain down everywhere. And we look forward to seeing you at the conference table and the caucus, Governor Hochul, as we make sure that MWBE is a priority in New York State. Thank you very much.
We like efficiency right here. Next on the agenda, we have Senator Brisport. Yes.
Good name.
And then Landon Dan.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for being out here covering this incredible press conference. Thank you to all my colleagues and to the caucus for organizing. Happy Black History Month. I am State Senator Jabari Brisport from Brooklyn, chair of the Committee on Children and Families. And two things I want to highlight from our Black agenda on helping families is one, preserving families, keeping them whole. Assemblymember Walker and I carry a bill known as the Family Miranda Act, which would require CPS or ACS workers to let parents know their rights at the door at the first interaction. The caucus has also very loudly fought for an Anti-Harassment and Reporting Act that would stop the practice of false anonymous complaints against families that would lead to unnecessary investigations and potentially unnecessary separations. For Black children, by the time they turn 18, nationwide, they have a 1 in 2 chance of having a CPS investigation, which can look like anything from a strip search, being pulled out of school, to a variety of things that may violate them in their homes. So we want to make sure we keep our families whole. And then the other thing I want to talk about that our caucus is actively pushing for is universal childcare. Yes. Making sure it is free and available to all parents and that the workers are paid well. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Assemblymember Landon Days. I represent the 77th District of the Southwest Bronx. Here to speak on two and a half quick items. First, we always care about families, similar to what the Senator just said. We have the Fatherhood Initiative. We want to create an entity that would allow young fathers, young Black fathers, and young Afro-Latino fathers resources to help them be a better father. As a father of 2, a baseball coach in my community, this is something that we need to reach out and pull people to understand. There's certain skill sets that can help them do better as fathers of young fathers. You know, I was blessed. I have an amazing dad, older brother and uncles who taught me how to be a father to my kids. I want to make sure some of those who don't have that have resources to help them reach their goals. And as we talk about Black history, Americans, Black Americans, and all those in the African diaspora have had a unique impact on this country. October 9th, 1779, a Haitian, or at that time, the island of Hispaniola, had a regiment that landed in Savannah. That history is not told because without them, we might not have defeated the British during the Revolutionary War. I bring that up because we always try to forget about the contributions of African Americans to the founding of this country. The second thing I want to speak about is the census. My family got here in 1787. How do I know that? The census. A woman, last name just Quanabon. That's my first relative that we know that came onto these shores. And the census is important because without that census document, I would not have known about her, about my history, and what year I came here. And that is why I'm glad with my chairwoman, we're working on getting money from the governor to make sure that we can get the census up and moving to the point where New York is fully represented. We are currently looking at possibly losing 2 seats in 2030. That is a guarantee. That means probably a minority congressional seat will be lost, and we cannot afford that, especially with this current federal administration. And last, as someone who represents the Southwest Bronx, I have one of the largest West African, Afro-Dominican, Afro-Latino populations in all of New York. My schools, parents are afraid to bring their kids to school, and attendance is going down. We got to make sure that we can let our families know that they are protected and they're safe to go to our schools. And that's something I will always promise. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Amanda Septima and then Farah Sufant Forrest.
I will be brief because my colleagues have already spoken on so many of the great things included in this agenda. But I want to highlight that we are bringing this forth in Black History Month, and happy Black History Month to everyone. But this is really an agenda about what it means for a Black future here in New York. This is an agenda about the Black legacy here in New York. Every single year, we come and we build a budget that is meant to improve people's lives. And yet every single year, we are back fighting for so many of the same bills that don't get over the line. In this moment, when we are watching the federal government be hostile to every part of our community, but especially Black and Brown New Yorkers, we need to step up and say, we are going to step in the gap of leadership. We are going to say enough is enough. We are going to say not today. And so I want to thank every single one of my colleagues for their work and their effort in making sure that's a reality. And I want to say to Governor Hochul, this is the opportunity to step up and step in the gap of leadership for Black New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to bring up the topic of mental health when it comes down to our Black and Brown communities, particularly when we look at the health disparities, the access disparities amongst Black Americans. We know that Black Americans are not able to get the services that they need in the communities and then in their communities with people that look like them. In addition to that, with every racial disparity, economic disparity, all the disparities that are, all the oppressions that are put upon us, we are most likely to suffer from bipolar, schizophrenia, and suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome. And this is coming from a nurse to tell you that when we look at the populations in Rikers, 54% and over are people struggling with mental health diseases. But then when we look at the population at Rikers as well, we know that it is us. And so when we fight for Daniel's Law, when we fight for treatment, not jail, to mandate treatment courts across the state, we're saying that we care. We're all leaders in this fight, but we have to make sure we stand up where it matters, where people are the most vulnerable, and whether it's at their home or at the and when they encounter the incarceral system, at the hospital, in the schools, we have to make sure we fight for it all. That includes mental health providers in the schools, mental health providers at the college, mental health providers in every single neighborhood. So I'm very happy to be here with all my colleagues, my wonderful chair, making sure that we protect the most valuable asset, our minds. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
And happy birthday as well. We have another birthday. Yeah. Next, we have Senator Clear.
Happy Black History Month, everybody. You know, every month is Black History for me. I'm New York State Senator Cordell Clear, representing the 30th District, which includes the historic community of Harlem. Yeah. And as we stand here today, we are in the period of the 100th anniversary of the Harlem Renaissance. And right now, our Black arts organizations are suffering. There is a huge disparity. We have to make sure that we fund our Black arts organizations and programs to continue creating and continue carrying the legacy and the history of Black arts and culture. So I have a bill, and I'm hoping that we can get that passed this year. In addition, I'm also the co-sponsor I'm the sponsor on the Senate side, and Jordan Wright has picked it up in the Assembly, Assemblymember Wright. We have to get a jury of our peers. It is imperative. Once you have served your time, once you have paid your debt to society, you should have your right to sit on a jury restored. It's not a lifelong sentence. Right now, we look at these cases that get these ridiculous rulings sometimes, and you wonder, but you walk into a courtroom, any courtroom, I don't care which one it is, and you look at the composition of juries, and it is alarmingly not Black and brown people sitting there. So we don't need any more barriers that keep us from sitting in that jury seat. Let's pass jury of our peers, and let's fully fund the Youth Justice Innovation Fund for Raise the Age. We have to fund these mandates. It's very important. So I'm hoping to get that passed this year, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Last but not least, we have Assemblymember O'Farrell. I'm sorry, we have one more speaker after that. Assemblymember O'Farrell.
I'm going to be brief. Good morning, everyone. Happy Black History Month. I stand here before you today. I represent District 11, parts of Nassau County and Suffolk County. We are in a state of emergency, New York State. I want you to understand that. We are looking at programs being cut all across our state. We're looking to fund and stand together as a collective body, Black, Hispanic, and Asian Caucus. I'm representing my district because I want to fight for education, particularly higher education, as relates to this caucus membership and the diversity. Now, higher education, I'm on that committee, and I want to support and continue to fund the Higher Education Opportunity Program. It's very integral and important that we do that. We have our young people, our young leaders of tomorrow. If we fall, if we drop the ball in this, our future is decline. So I want to continue to fight for that. And as a caucus, we have our initiatives and our priorities, and these are one of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And then we have Assemblymember Burrows.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. As a lot of my colleagues stated, we are here to discuss or at least fight for some of the opportunities that should have been had so many years ago. And I am Noah Burrows. I represent the 18th Assembly District, which is in Nassau County. And I also represent one of the largest villages in New York State, which is the village of Hempstead. So as we look at this year, 2025, we see that we constantly fight for changes. We constantly ask for more, but we're asking for the same things over and over again. And so I look back as a teacher, and I look 21 years in the making, and then I could say education is the way to go. In order for us to know where we're going in the future, we have to know what happened in our past. So to deny us teaching our past is a travesty that we cannot see go further. So one of the things that I do know, and I tell any young kid that I teach them anytime, is that as an African American community, we are still at 17% at home ownership, which is terrible. And this is something that we have to constantly beg and fight and prod for. This is not something that should we deal with in, what is this, civil rights ended 60-something years ago. We're still living like this is a Jim Crow civil rights era. So I'm here to stand and fight for change and fight for things, our basic human rights. And these are the things that we have to fight for. And I'm here for that. And I say thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you. With that, it's the end of our press conference. If there's any questions, we'll take it. But if not, this is our agenda, and we're going to move it forward. Awesome. Oh, yeah, good. Dan, what's up? How are you?